We've done a lot of work on these statistics, which are on vaccine surveillance statistics from the Office for National Statistics. And there's a massive controversy about this, and we've raised these concerns, and they've not really been, they've not accepted. So I don't know if you're aware of it, but I can just give you a brief synopsis about what the problem is. So the problem is that all of their data, right? First of all, it's based on a somewhat biased sample. It's based on all people who were in the 2011 census in the UK in 2011 and who were registered with a GP in 2019, right? So it's a subset of the population. They're making all these estimates about the proportion of unvaccinated in the population based on that. It's not an exhaustive, it's nothing like an exhaustive subset for a start, right? So that's their data, right? But they're getting information. So obviously they've got data on deaths, and they're supposed to have accurate data on vaccination status of everybody there. But of course, what we know is happening, I'm sure there's something that you'll be aware of as well, is that whether or not someone is classified as vaccinated or not, right, or 1 dose, 2 dose, 3 dose, whatever, is susceptible to, let's say, significant manipulation. Some of it deliberate, some of it not. So in the case of, we know that for any of the effectiveness studies, they'll say, well, you can't consider the vaccine to be effective until you've had it for 2 weeks. So anybody who gets COVID in that time, we don't count them as a COVID case. So you've got this unbelievable built-in bias where you're guaranteed, even with a known placebo that you're given, you'd get a statistical artifact that shows very high efficacy, and then waning off.
I understood that. Now
it's a pure statistical artifact. You get that. Similarly, if you get delayed reporting, you get the same thing. But the same thing happens with deaths, and this is really bad. So they'll claim, no, if someone has had the vaccine and dies 24 hours later, no, we classify that as a vaccinated death. No, we know that doesn't happen. We know that most of the people who die shortly after the first dose are classified as unvaccinated. We know that most of the people who die shortly after the second dose are classified as 1 dose. So you get this misclassification. And that misclassification is skewing all of their data, right? To the extent that we know, right? So that skews any results they claim about safety and efficacy, because they claim, well, no, the data is showing that it is both, safe and effective. But we also showed that it couldn't be true, because actually what happens is that when you look at their own data, you do a plot of what happens with all-cause non-COVID deaths shortly after the rollout of the vaccination. You get this bizarre thing whereby the unvaccinated get a peak in non-COVID deaths when the vaccination program is rolled out. So somehow, when you're vaccinating a whole load of people, all those who aren't getting vaccinated are suddenly dying of non-COVID diseases. Well, that proves that there's a misclassification thing. And, they came with this ridiculous idea. We challenged them, we spoke to them about it, said, oh, well, that's the healthy vaccinee effect. We proved that couldn't be the case by looking at historical data. So but they still maintained it. But now the big thing is, they've got this, all their data is based on literally a bizarre underestimate of the proportion of people who actually aren't vaccinated in the UK. So they claim that only 4 million, which is 8% of UK adults, are unvaccinated. Now, if you underestimate that proportion, and that's the denominator in all of your effectiveness and safety things, and obviously you're going to massively exaggerate the effectiveness and safety of the vaccine, which is what they're doing. Well, we've challenged them on this. There are other government agencies. So the same UK government, another agency called the United Kingdom Health Security Agency, is saying that over 20% of adults are unvaccinated. There's a big difference between 20% and 8%. If you're using that as the denominator, everything switches. With the UK HSA denominator, you get, in every single age group, you get a significant increase in all-cause mortality.
So let me understand.
Vaccinated.
If there are more unvaccinated than are being allowed for certain calculations, then the fact that they are not experiencing an increase in negative health effects that are downstream of effectively, the vaccines are borrowing some of the health of unvaccinated people
Exactly.
to increase the appearance that they are safe.
That's exactly it. Simple as that.
Oh, yeah.
Simple as that. And there was another. I've been like on loads. I've done loads of podcasts in the last 2 weeks because there was a BBC Two documentary called Unvaccinated, which, fun enough, was hosted by Hannah Fry, who was my co-presenter when I, did my BBC documentary. But she's gone on since then, to be very famous. She's now the lead. She's like the face of science in the UK. So she did this program called Unvaccinated, which is the most biased, unbelievably biased program. They got 7 unvaccinated people and tried to basically convince them over a week to get vaccinated. They wanted. It was supposed to be. They tried. It was supposed to be objective. They were supposed to say give them arguments both ways and find out why they were unvaccinated. But it was the most biased thing. And they brought in the experts and they failed to declare these people like Pfizer had strong association with Pfizer. These were the experts. So all of that anyway. But the interest, what was really interesting, I picked up on this point about it, is at the start of the program, the reason I pricked my ears up about it and first started blogging about it was because they were making this claim about only 8% unvaccinated, and they were trying to claim this is some tiny fringe crazy minority. And I knew that figure was wrong. I knew that was based on this wrong ONS data, so I started to raise a concern straight away. But the program, and they actually, BBC, to be fair, they changed the headline on one of their articles, which was advertising the program. They took that 4 million or 8% off the headline, but it was still a key feature of the programs. The program started with Hannah Fry saying, despite this great vaccination program, there's still 4 million UK adults who are unvaccinated, right? 8%, making out that was far too big a number, right? But you know what she said? This is incredible. And I then checked out and I looked at the source for this. She said that in preparation for the program, the BBC had done their own large survey, representative survey of over 2,500 UK adults. And they found that 600, well, it was actually, which was 24%. And actually, we looked at the source data from the study. It really was a very good survey. It was actually 26% unvaccinated. And that's a big sample. That's a big sample. In fact, using sort of standard statistical arguments, that means the probability that the true number is less than 20% unvaccinated is effectively 0. So there really are over 20% unvaccinated, contrary to what, is the basis for all of these safety and efficacy claims.
The whole COVID evidentiary picture is it's like a hall of mirrors, right? You are looking at something and you have no idea whether it's an actual something or a created something or a misinterpretation of something. But let's put it this way. COVID is a complex problem. It's not this complex, right? Mm-hmm. We have hundreds of years, frankly, of work figuring out how you analyze things. We've gotten good at analyzing for simple patterns like, if you had this treatment, are you more or less likely to die over X period of time? That's not a difficult problem. So the fact that we can't get anything right, we can't say things definitively because the entire thing has been reduced to some kind of bizarre team sport. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's unreal, right? It's not this hard. Get some smart people, put them in a room, immunize them from bad consequences, and have them talk about how you would figure out where we are and what to do about it.